If you haven't run Cayo Perico this week, you're leaving money on the table. Seriously. This is one of those weeks you don't want to miss. The Panther Statue is paying big right now, and with a clean solo hard mode run and the Elite Challenge, we're walking away with over $2 million. And here's the best part. This isn't some crazy speed run that only a handful of players can pull off. Everything you're about to see is simple, repeatable, and honestly, once you've done it a couple of times, it becomes almost relaxing. This run took me just 10 minutes and 11 seconds, completely solo, completely undetected, and I wasn't even rushing. So if you've been waiting for the perfect time to run Cayo, this is it. Alright, let's make some money. For this run we're keeping things nice and simple. I'm using the Velum approach on hard mode with the Aggressor loadout, suppressors equipped, and my weapons already stashed at the airstrip. One thing I want to mention before we even start. This isn't the fastest route in the world. It's the most consistent route for me. There's a big difference. A lot of players think Elite is all about moving faster. Honestly, it's more about making fewer bad decisions. A calm run almost always beats a rushed one. That's the mindset we're taking into this entire heist. Alright, here we are. First things first, we'll go through the security check like the perfectly innocent tourist we obviously are. Nothing suspicious here. Definitely not about to rob the richest guy on the island. Now as soon as we're free to move, our first stop is inside the hangar. Since we're using the Velum approach, our weapon stash is already waiting for us on the floor. Just walk over, grab the black duffel bag, and now our Aggressor loadout is ready to go whenever we need it. Simple. No extra traveling. No unnecessary detours. Everything is exactly where we need it. And that's something you'll notice throughout this guide. Every decision has one purpose. Saving time without adding extra risk. Now before we even think about visiting Mr. Rubio, let's make sure we leave his island with a full bag. The weed inside this hangar is more than enough for this route, and that's one of the reasons I like starting here. We don't need to travel halfway across the island looking for secondary loot. Everything is already close together. There are 3 pickup spots we're using here. The first one is right on the ground floor of the hangar, and then we've got 2 more spots behind that caged door. Once we open it, we'll use the forklift to lift the crate so we can get up there and grab the final stack. That fills the remaining space in the bag. Nice and easy. Now our loot bag is completely full before we've even reached the compound. That's exactly what we want. One thing I really like about this approach is that it doesn't ask you to be a speed runner. Once you've done it a couple of times, it becomes almost relaxing because every step naturally flows into the next. We're not rushing. We're not taking unnecessary risks. We're simply following a route that works. And honestly, 15 minutes is way more time than we actually need. If you follow this approach, you'll probably spend more time admiring Rubio's little island than worrying about the timer. Alright, our next priority is the guard clothing. This is one of those things that makes the rest of the run feel incredibly smooth. A mistake I see quite a few players make is rushing past the disguise because they're trying to save a few seconds. Ironically, they usually lose much more time fixing the problems that decision creates later. So if the guard clothing is available, take it. Trust me, your future self will thank you. And look at that. The cargo truck is sitting right here. Perfect. I always take the cargo truck if it's sitting right here at the airstrip. Sure, there are faster options, but this is simple, consistent, and honestly, it just works. You could spend time finding a bike and a grappling hook, or deal with extra guards and look for codes to get into the compound another way. But if the cargo truck is sitting here, why make things harder? We can simply use what is already available and drive straight where we need to go. One thing I always check before driving away. Make absolutely sure you're unarmed. Seriously, this tiny detail catches so many players. Sometimes when getting into the truck, pressing L1 can accidentally bring a weapon into your hands. If you're driving through a checkpoint while holding a gun, you can immediately attract attention and potentially throw away a perfectly clean elite run. So before moving, take one quick second. Press square and check the prompt on screen. Make sure it says you're unarmed. You don't want to be casually driving around in a cargo truck while holding an aggressor or a knuckle duster and then wonder why the guards suddenly care about you. It's a tiny thing, but it's one of those little mistakes that can ruin an otherwise perfect run. Alright, now we can finally head towards the compound. Notice something. We're already in a really strong position. Our weapons are ready. Our loot bag is full. We've got our disguise. We've got our truck. And we haven't had to do anything complicated to get here. That's exactly why I enjoy this route. It doesn't rely on fancy tricks. It doesn't expect perfect speedrun movement. It simply removes unnecessary problems before they even have a chance to happen. And honestly, making money in GTA Online isn't about working harder. It's about knowing which week to take advantage of. And if you're watching this while the Panther bonus is active, this is definitely one of those weeks. So, we're approaching the compound now, and this is where I want you to slow your brain down a little. Not your character, your brain. Because this is where people start rushing. You've got a full loot bag, you've got the disguise, and you know the elite timer is running. So it's very tempting to start flying through everything. Don't. The whole point of this approach is that we don't need to. Once we reach the compound, I keep things very simple. We only take out the guards that actually get in our way, and there's no reason to turn this into a full-blown shooting gallery. Less shooting means fewer chances to mess something up. And honestly, we don't need half of Rubio's security team to know we're here. We just need to get what we came for. Alright, we're at the compound entrance. This is another place where I see players unnecessarily complicating things. The cargo truck gets us straight through, which is exactly why I like having it. We don't need to start hunting for alternative ways into the compound or waste time collecting extra items when this route is already sitting right there for us. Just drive in, keep things clean, and we're good. And remember, don't rush just because the timer is running. We've already done the important part. The loot is secured, we're undetected, and we're well within the time we need for elite. Once we're inside, we're really only dealing with the guards that matter for our route. There's a guard outside the office stairs who needs to go, so we'll take care of him. Then there's another guard nearby. For this one, I prefer to bash him with a weapon rather than firing a shot. And there's a reason for that. A gunshot inside this area can potentially ricochet off a wall and create an unnecessary problem. We don't need that. So, keep it quiet. We're not here to prove how many guards we can eliminate. We're here to steal a Panther and leave. Now we're heading up to Rubio's office. And this is another little bonus that I like about this route. Before we go for the Panther, we can grab the extra cash from the office safe. It's basically free money because we're already coming through here. So, why leave it behind? This is one of those small decisions that adds up. We're not doing extra work just to make more money. We're simply taking advantage of what's already directly in our path. That's the difference. And at this point, let me say something important. If you're trying to get elite and you're watching that timer constantly, relax. Seriously. One thing I really like about this approach is that it doesn't ask you to be a speedrunner. Once you've done it a couple of times, it becomes almost relaxing because every step naturally flows into the next. We're not trying to beat the clock by a ridiculous margin. We're just avoiding unnecessary delays. And that's much easier to repeat. Alright. This is why we came all the way to this island. Let's go steal a giant cat statue. We're heading down to the basement to grab the Panther. The fingerprint hack here is straightforward, so I'm not going to turn this video into a fingerprint tutorial. If you've done Cayo even a few times, you already know what you're doing. Just match the fingerprints, get through the hack, and let's get that Panther. And there she is. Beautiful. Worth an absolutely ridiculous amount of money this week. And yes, I had to wave at her. I mean, come on. If I'm stealing a giant Panther statue worth millions, the least I can do is say hello first. Priorities. At this point, we're already on track for elite, and the shortcut coming up is the reason I almost never worry about the timer anymore. Everything important is done. We've got the primary target. We've got our secondary loot. We've grabbed the office cash. We're still completely undetected. And now all that's left is getting off this island. This is where a lot of players can waste a surprising amount of time. They follow the longer escape route, they start panicking about the timer, or they try to improvise something at the last second. We don't need to do any of that, because we're about to take the shortcut. And this little shortcut is one of my favorite parts of the whole approach. Before we leave, notice how little combat we actually needed during this entire run. We're not clearing the compound. We're not trying to eliminate every guard. We're not turning this into an action movie. We're just removing the few people who can interfere with our route and moving on. That's another reason this approach is so comfortable once you learn it. You know exactly what matters. And you know what you can simply ignore. And when you stop doing unnecessary things, the timer suddenly becomes a lot less scary. Alright, now it's time to leave. And this is where we save a really good chunk of time. As we're leaving the compound, I head toward the left side of Rubio's compound, make my way toward the cliffs, and then, we're jumping. Yep, we're literally jumping off the cliffs. And don't worry, this is intentional. From here, we just hit the water and swim away from the island. That's it. No complicated escape sequence. No searching for another vehicle. No unnecessary fighting. Just jump, swim, and let the game do the rest. And this little shortcut can save us around 5 minutes, which is a massive difference when you're going for elite. And this is exactly why I said earlier that you don't need to play like a speedrunner. It's to remove the parts that waste time. Think about the run we've just done. We used the weapons already waiting in the hangar. We filled the bag at the airstrip. We grabbed the guard clothing. We used the cargo truck to get straight into the compound. We only dealt with the guards we actually needed to. We took the office cash. We grabbed the Panther. And now we're using a shortcut that can remove several minutes from the escape. That's what I mean when I say, fast doesn't always mean rushing. Fast means making fewer bad decisions. We're still comfortably within the elite requirement. That's my favorite thing about this approach. I'm not taking ridiculous risks. You've got breathing room. At this point, there's really nothing left to do except keep swimming away. And this is probably the most relaxing part of the entire heist. After all that sneaking around Rubio's compound, we're just casually swimming into the ocean with a giant Panther statue in our bag. Totally normal GTA activities. And once the escape triggers, that's it. Cayo Perico is done. And there we go. 10 minutes and 11 seconds. Solo. Hard mode. Elite challenge completed. No detection. Full secondary loot. Panther secured. And we walked away with over $2 million. That's exactly what we came here for. And remember, I wasn't even rushing. That's the part one really want you to take away from this video. If you follow this approach and practice it a couple of times, you don't need to panic when you see that elite timer. The route does the work for you. And that's also why I said right at the beginning, if you haven't run Cayo this week, you're leaving money on the table. This Panther bonus isn't going to stay around forever. So if you've got a Cayo setup waiting, don't let it sit there. Take advantage of the bonus while it's active. You don't need some crazy speedrun setup. You don't need to play like a professional esports player. You just need a clean route, a little patience, and a plan you can repeat. So, solo, undetected, elite completed, and over $2 million in the bag. Honestly, I'd call that a pretty successful little island vacation. And yes, Rubio, I'll bring your Panther back. Eventually. Maybe. If this guide helped you, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments what your fastest Cayo Perico time is. And if your Cayo setup is still sitting there waiting for you, this is your sign. Go steal that Panther before the weekly bonus disappears. Rubio can always buy another statue. Alright. I'm out. Go make that money, girls and boys.